In this video, we're going through every single mob in Minecraft and we're going to figure out what their Pokemon types are. But hold up a second, aren't most Minecraft mobs pretty normal? Well, actually no, and even the normal ones have something special going on that can link them to a type or two. Saying this though, we do have a number of fish that they've added to this game, and none of them really have anything notable going on for them. So cod, salmon, and tropical fish all get the water type, and that's it. I could argue for a fairy type with the tropical fish, but it turns out that colourful fish like Bruxish actually aren't fairy, they're more psychic. This is irrelevant though, as there isn't anything special enough going on for this slightly different fish, and thus it can just stay a water type. Hey you, subscribe! I'm doing a giveaway at 10,000 subscribers for one £50 gaming gift voucher. So if you don't want to miss out and want to show support for my Minecraft videos, please subscribe and there'll be more on the way. With that out of the way, let's go through every mob alphabetically, starting with our passive mobs and the allay. Immediately we're welcomed by something very unique for this game. To me, the allay shouldn't and doesn't exist. They feel more like a modded creature than something you will naturally find floating around in vanilla, though it's more because of how bright and blue they are than anything else about them. This is though quite clearly a fairy. The closest thing to a fairy you'll find in fact, as its small body, friendly attitude, and ability to fly are all attributes that Tinkerbell would share. Not all fairies fly as well, so we can grant this floaty blue bob the flying type on top. Armadillos are very cool creatures, and another thing that I'm very happy to see early on, as it proves that we're not just going to go normal for everything in this video. To me, the ground type was my first thought, with their ability to blend in and kind of make the ground their safe space. But that's kind of dumb, and I think there are two more types that are far more relevant, steel and rock. Originally I was going to argue between which one of these goes with ground, but again, that's dumb, and I think that these two make perfect sense, with rock being equivalent to its bony hide, and the fact that that hide feels like it's tough as steel. Hidden down in viney caves, you will find a tremendous creature, the axolotl. Its environment is lush, actually, and really gives off the vibes of an area that would attract fairy types, with its glowing bits and stunning colours. I actually do think that axolotls deserve the typing, and far more than with the tropical fish. Of course it will still get the water type as it swims around the small pockets of water it can find. Grass and ground would have been great fits as well, but the axolotl itself doesn't personally interact with the typings, as it just so happens to live in a grass-ground cave. Bats are a pretty easy one to place, as they can't get the poison type with the whole passive mob thing, and they fly around in the dark. Yeah, I'm gonna go with dark flying no matter how controversial you may think that choice is. It's not controversial. Next up, we have two kinds of camel, the camel and the edgier camel. With their desert environment and yellow colour scheme, they really feel like something that would gladly fit the ground type, especially as they are one of the only animals that can actively move itself close to the ground, when it lies down of course. It also can't really jump that high off the ground. That is not enough for our camel husk though, and I can't tell if this camel is either on its way to its end or already gone. Officially, it is already gone though, and as this is an undead creature, perfectly fitting of the ghost type. No, we were doing so well, but the cat is literally just a cat, and it's domesticated and everything. This is the most normal thing we can find, though I guess it does go out and attack small things. This ain't enough in my opinion for it to earn the fighting type, as something that targets only chickens has not earned my respect enough for that. Normal it is. Talking of its prey, chickens are also quite normal, but have the added benefit of wings, something that would appear cosmetic until you drop them from 1,000 blocks. It's such a shame you can't actually attach a lead to these guys and use them as parachutes, because imagine how awesome the Minecraft D-Day reenactments would look like with that. Still a cool feature on its own though, and evidence enough to display its flying type capabilities, making it a normal flying type. Once I had finished conceptualizing this entire video, I talked to a friend about some of these typings to get a little feedback, but mostly to figure out if I was crazy or not, as spoiler alert, I had not seen the electric type anywhere. So we both had a second look, and magically pretty much said, what about the copper golem at the same time? While they aren't directly linked to redstone, they are very much redstone adjacent, and this mystery power is the closest thing Minecraft has to electricity. Not only that, but the little rod in its head resembles the copper rods that attract lightning, so this works great with an obvious steel typing. Cows, they stand around and eat grass, I guess. Nothing special going on here. Now, I know you sick freaks want me to give this innocent being the water type, as yes, technically it produces a liquid substance, but so does every being in the real world, and the fact that cows do here is a bit discriminatory towards all the other beings that could have also produced some stuff. I'm sure there's a mod pack out there somewhere though. So yeah, normal type with a potential grass or water type, but no. No. If you haven't been around horses and donkeys much in person, this is where I reveal to you that donkeys are like horses, but you don't want to put anything you don't want to lose in front of its mouth. Like, you give a horse your hand, and they'll politely nibble it, looking for treats. To a donkey, your hand is the treat. Not to mention that donkeys are a lot more willing to show off their ability to fight, making them just fighting types. I hope this doesn't put you off donkeys though, as most are sweet, and their ability to throw hands is actually quite an endearing quality. While we're here, we might as well talk about horses and mules, and this is technically kind of an evolution line. So I think the best thing we can do is to merge the horses and donkeys typings for the mule, with the horse being so basic it can sit with the normal type, thus making mules fighting normal. Hear me out. I know I didn't give the poison type to bats because it doesn't actually poison you, but I really feel like it's appropriate for frogs. They are slimy little things that, in the real world, have a poison dark frog variant, and as a kid, I was absolutely terrified of these things, as if I was going to run into one in the UK. To be fair to me, we do have the rain part of a rainforest. Anyways, the sliminess and lore give it poison to me, with water being an obvious addition. There is beauty in all things related to nature, and anything that displays bioluminescence truly feels out of this world. That's why, even in Minecraft, when I see a glow squid, I'm struck by a sense of awe. It's really pretty and colourful, something required to be a fairy type. This also works for my vague definition of it being something that doesn't feel real. And wouldn't you know it, this is yet another water type. Who knew the thing that covers most of the world's surface would also cover a good proportion of the mobs in Minecraft? And we ain't done, as the Happy Gas' whole gimmick is that we either birth or revive it by saving it from hell and letting it dabble in some water for a bit. You'd think, with its origin being hell, you'd expect the fire type, but this guy's a pacifist, literally, and we don't see any fire type attacks coming out of its mouth, unlike its hellish brethren, which is certainly a fire flying type. This guy's on the other side of the coin with a water flying typing. Oh no, I'm noticing that I want to give out the fairy type to everything, but it's not my fault that a lot of passive mobs are so unique, friendly, and colourful. The mushroom is loads better than just a basic cow, as it lives on a weird island and has a distinct red hue, as well as mushrooms lining its back. This is the sort of thing you'd either see in a fairy tale or an episode of Rick and Morty, but there isn't an alien typing to give it yet, so it's definitely a fairy. Otherwise, obviously the grass type is key, as this is one of the only mobs to have a plant-like trait in its design. I know it's technically a mushroom, but fungus is a grass type, and even better, these aren't poisonous, so they might as well just be regular plants. Don't blame me. Minecraft ocelots remind me a lot of the Pokemon Liepard, particularly because of the dots, and this inclines me towards the dark type. This also coincides with the vague idea that ocelots are a darker, wilder version of a Minecraft cat, while it is untamed. I mean this less literally, as of course they removed this as an actual feature, but since they are still kinda similar, just a bit more wild, I think the dark normal typing is our best fit. Nice and easy one next, as parrots, I believe, are our only regular bird. There's certainly a lot of creatures that have wings or can fly, but parrots are your stock standard bird, also ignoring chickens. This all perfectly leads to the flying type, and it doesn't warrant anything else, as this bird isn't firing out psychic beams or engulfing its jungle in flame. You might think that I'm going to go the same route with the pig that I went with all the other basic passive livestock, but no, pigs have an incredible connection to the ground, not even just in real life with how muddy they like to get, but in the food that they eat, which grows within the ground in the game. It's a perfect typing for such a messy animal. Quickly to finish off our general livestock, we have sheep, which to be honest is going to be the normal type. The things that make it stand out can't be linked to any other typing, as colour is a universal concept, like having a warm coat. Most animals should have this, it's just that sheep have been selectively bred to do it better, even to their own detriment. We now have two mobs that are a little annoying to sort, as they both have variations that aren't officially different mobs. These are the fox and rabbit, with their regular versions and their icy versions. Luckily though, Pokemon sorta has a system for this in its regional variants, which is exactly what this is. So we can give the normal type to the normal rabbit, and the ice type to the ice rabbit. Then our fox is actually going to be the fighting type in its regular variant, as it's certainly more renowned for hunting in its territory than cats in this game, making the ice variant fighting ice. We're almost done with the passive mobs, by the way, and then we can get into some more exciting ones, though we still have some awesome passive mobs to roll through, notably the skeleton horse, which actually does feel like a mythical mob, especially when you have a random chance to find it, and will only trigger its spawn by walking up to a random horse after travelling for thousands of blocks. I like the idea of using the pretty rare type combo then of Ghost Normal, keeping the horse's original type but turning it into the ghost that it very much is. Because let's be real, getting struck by lightning is going to turn any living being into a ghost. But we aren't done with the interesting passive mobs, as Sniffers come next, another really unique and reasonably rare mob. I've considered the rock type for this guy, as it's one of the only mobs that requires an egg to hatch it, and it's got quite a large beak, but that could be argued to be rock adjacent. I don't need to argue though for his main type, which has to be grass. He grows on moss and his entire look is grassy. You could definitely take a bite out of these long strands if you had the molars to chew it down. These two types work out well in my opinion. Keep these cool ones coming, we're on a streak now, and we've even started a little grass combo, as the snow golem has to have the type, as it literally has a vegetable on its head. I'm going to give you 3 guesses for what its second type is though, as it's not entirely obvious. Yes, ghost could work, as there is clearly some sort of made up entity controlling this thing. And yes, snowmen are pretty normal to build yourself. But would it shock you for me to go with ice? My argument would be that it's made of snow, which is ice, and it launches snowballs at you, which is ice. If you disagree, I completely understand, and you may ridicule my choice in the comments. Squids are back, but in a far less glamorous way. The concept is exactly the same, but without its bioluminescence, its other major selling point comes into play: the ink. Now, you may disagree with me, but I think ingesting a bunch of ink isn't the healthiest thing to do, and yet it's probably what does happen when you are squirted at while in the ocean. Some of that stuff is getting in you, if you don't have a mask, and I'm sure enough it will poison you. So, water poison it is. Striding across great pools of lava, we have our first true Nether mob. Not a surprise since we've just focused on passive mobs so far, and you wouldn't expect anything in hell to be chill. This fun little fella is though, and embodies what it is to be a fire type, immune to lava. Pretty gnarly, and on top of it takes a page out of Jesus' book by walking on lava, which is a liquid, kind of like water. With that immense stretch, it's going to be a fire water type, another really cool and thematic one. Even though frogs grow up from tadpoles, technically they are considered different mobs, so we'll just give these gross looking things the water type, and imagine that they evolve into the water poison frog form. Nice and easy. There are far too many water types in this video, and yes, I do regret giving the lava dude a water typing only moments ago, but we're past that now and there are no takebacks. This is why though I'm inclined not to reward turtles with the water type. 90% of the time, you'll find them milling around a beach, and their hard shell gives the rock type far more credit. If a turtle felt like it would never need to go in the sea again, and thus it's just going to be a rock type. What type of Pokemon though is a person? Fans have always considered what would happen to a person if they were shoved inside of a Pokeball, but have never really considered the type matchups and tactics for using one if you succeeded. I mean, they have to be normal, right? And that means that villagers and wandering traders must be that. I guess that regular villagers do work with the ground often, but that's only the farmers, which is one of many different career paths for these prospective Pokemon, so we can stick with that. I forgot to mention with the skeleton horse, but zombie horses are pretty much the same thing, but less bony, so they get the same typings. Though I could honestly be convinced to make the skeleton horse a rock ghost type, and you know what? I am. So the zombie horse is a normal ghost and the skeleton horse is a rock ghost. And that is every passive mob done, which means we can move on to a slightly more exciting group, the neutral mobs. Some boring ones have snuck in, but this category does have its bangers, so stick around. Starting with the bee, a nice and simple little guy who is one of our only bugs in the game. Screw it, you know what, let's talk about all 4 bugs. The bee, obviously, both spider variants, and one I almost missed, the silverfish. Because cave spiders have a poison effect, obviously they get the poison type, on top of their bug type, leaving the regular spider as just a bug. I'd like to represent all typings linked to this group of bugs, so I'm discounting the bee's toxic ability for the feature that differentiates it from the other bugs. Its wings, of course. And even though these shouldn't scientifically allow for a bee to fly, bees don't care what humans think. So they're definitely flying bugs. Finally, our rogue candidate, the silverfish, which in the game loves to live in stone, making it an easy bug rock type. Even within the neutral mobs, we haven't escaped from the water type, as obviously dolphins fit in that camp. With how friendly and whimsical these sea mammals are, I could happily give it to the fairy type. They are so friendly in fact that they passively buff you while swimming around them. This is far more exciting than the alternate option of the normal type, as realistically mammals are the closest to us evolutionarily, and thus we will see them as quite normal. That's why a considerable amount of normal types in the Pokemon games turn out to just be mammals. These are clearly water fairy types. Staying in the water, we have the exact opposite of whimsy and fun, as getting peppered by a trident while already being in an awkward environment is likely as traumatizing as being peppered by a minigun on Omaha Beach. This isn't relevant to the drown's typing though, I'm just being dramatic. And as the zombie of the sea, it is of course a water ghost type. What embodies the abyss better than an Enderman? When you sit in the end, looking out at the endless darkness, all you are joined by are these lanky dudes, hanging out and embracing it. Seeing these beings blended in with the night is a spooky sight, when all you can see is their glowing eyes, drawing you in to trigger an attack. True SCP stuff, and definitely the dark type. Though let's also give it the psychic type, as its ability to teleport is synonymous with the typing. My goat, the goat, a goat, is actually going to be a primary fighting type. This is one of the only mobs that sort of actively chooses to attack you. Like, they aren't evil, they just have a love for the game. That game being shoving their horns directly into your abdomen. As they also have fluffy coats with the intention of living on a mountain peak, which is typically an icy environment, it's clearly a fighting ice type. For the copper golem's distant relative, steel is a must. It's its whole identity, being a great golem of iron protecting its villagers. But once again, protection comes with an ability and need to fight. Maybe this stands out considerably, as most neutral mobs need a reason to fight, and thus it's a big part of their identity. But as this does feel like a core part of an iron golem, and unlike the copper golem, there aren't any links to electricity through its design and function, this guy is a steel fighting type. Llamas are mammals, so we can give it the normal type and move swiftly on, and yet again back into the water. This is another interesting one though, with it being a very new mob, and unlike the turtle, Nautilus have to stay in the sea, no matter how rocky their exterior is, so it's certainly a water rock type. I would, however, say its dead cousin, the zombie Nautilus, is more of a rock ghost than a water rock, as its shell is the most important aspect of the mob, and the zombie part is literally so important that it's the reason this exists. So yet again, goodbye and good riddance, water type. To be fair, this does work, as a lot of water-based Pokemon are indeed missing the water type. Certified panda haters, please stand up. This fat sack of lard has accomplished nothing in its evolutionary life, and is only still going due to forced breeding programs that China will never stop paying for, as somehow we've allowed the country to own all pandas no matter what. That's not fair. Sorry, the panda is only good for sitting around and eating bamboo, and that's its only notable stake in this world. A legacy of grassy food that they can't even eat properly. Pathetic. Piglin. For a mob that lives exclusively in the Nether, they're surprisingly easy to burn. Crispy bacon is an opportunity around every corner in this dimension, for the sole reason that you have access to both ingredient and source of heat in abundance. Though don't be too hasty, as these guys will come for you if you don't have any form of gold on show. This is a clear link to the steel type, even if they don't display it on them themselves. Their main type though is based on their aggression, if you don't display the metal. These feel like easily the most aggressive mob in the game, and even walking amongst them while they're chill feels like you're walking through the wrong neighborhood and they might jump you without a second thought. Fighting steel it is. Polar bears, like llamas, are another simple one, as we have an actual Pokemon that is just straight up a polar bear. Beartic is quite reasonably an ice type, and thus polar bears are ice types. It's not like the polar region is famous for being an icy wasteland or something. Oh wait, it is. Do you know what the most common mob to kill you with poison is? The witch, probably, yeah. But don't discredit the pufferfish. I've seen some nasty pufferfish traps in my day. Their toxins are not to be laughed at. So this is a gimme, with water being a required part of these traps, as you know, they kinda need it to survive. Trade llamas? Why are these even technically different mobs? Get out of here with your normal typing and your fancy coverings. I do not care that you're domesticated. In fact, that makes you even more normal than the other llamas. Woof. Yeah, I bet that intimidated you, almost as much as a sheep would be while staring down the saliva-filled fangs of a wolf. These are like cats, but better, as they don't stop at just chickens, meaning while they are still normal with their regular design and ability to be domesticated, they have the actual ability to throw hands, making them a very cool fighting normal type. We've made it to the most exciting mobs in the game, our hostile mobs. Though we've got one more mob to clean up, and that's the zombified piglin, who has the funniest gimmick in the game. You even so much as brush one of these guys with your fist, and every other zombified piglin will know your exact location and IP address, and will certainly be on their way. These guys don't really care much about the steel aspect though, so they're just going to be ghost types. Here we go, some awesome mobs now, and beginning with another Nether nightmare in the Blaze. This guy is practically embodying what it means to be fire. To attack, they set themselves on fire, and then fire out bursts of fireballs that ignite either the ground or the unlucky player who's found themselves within range. Fire! While doing this, they also like to vaguely hover upwards, granting this hot guy the flying type as well. There are now zombie variants in this game, so like with the fish and spiders, we're once again going to group them up with the general typing of ghost, with the other type being the husk as a desert zombie, which we've kind of already linked to the ground type, as that's all the desert has to offer, and what we gave the camel that these things will happily be coinciding with, meaning it's a ground ghost. But we have one more zombie, and it's another one that doesn't feel like it really needs a separate distinction, other than that the model is slightly different and that they can be turned back into villagers. With villagers being the normal type, we can marry the ghost and normal type again for zombie villagers. Back to the Blaze though, or more accurately its cousin, the Breeze. Damn, these devs are lazy. They either can't be bothered to make a new model or are preying on nostalgia. This isn't a complaint though, as the Breeze is a really cool addition, even if it's a Blaze without the fire. With air and fire already sorted, when are we going to get a Blaze variant that shoots out rocks or water? You know it's gonna be a thing eventually, right? When they decide that the ocean needs its 70th mob. What we actually need is more forest representation, as forests feel too empty when it comes to mob variants. You either run into livestock or the creaking. You know what? Somebody cooked here, and they did not burn the food, as the creaking is a great representation of forest folklore come to life. Definitely a grass type with its general appearance and heart placed within a tree, then it could either be a ghost or dark type. The dark type wins, no diff. These only appear in the dark, and as with the Endermen, all you can really notice about them is their glowing eyes that warn of the danger to come. Ghost would have been cool, but these are clearly a manifestation of life's true hover rather than something spawned by death. Creepers, for being so iconic, are one of the most normal things in this game. They hang out and then go boom, much like the Pokémon Electrode. Though this isn't even brought about by electricity. Sure, hit them with a lightning bolt and they go Super Saiyan, but this is much more like a Mega Evolution that changes its type. So creepers are just normal types with a Mega Evolution that turns them into a normal electric type. With Endermites being pretty much Endermen as bugs, it's easy to go with bug for them, but that leaves us a choice between the Psychic type and Dark type now. And as with the Enderman, we have to go with the Dark type, as it's its main type. And this is truly a creature of the abyss. Also, they just straight up don't teleport, so this wasn't even an argument in the first place. I found that a lot of types have kind of been pushed to the wayside for most of this video, and now it's Psychic's time to shine, as a weird amount of Minecraft mobs have Psychic-esque abilities and connections. One is notably the Evoker, who doesn't mess with potions like a witch, but actually manifests mobs and attacks that are fully psychic based. It's probably the most unique mob in the game, and it's unfortunate that we haven't seen anything similar since, apart from that one ice wizard that they planned and discarded. The little minion dudes that these guys summon are their own mob in the Vex, a tremendously scary murder fairy. Allays are just Vex, who were one bad day away from turning into everyone's least favourite mob. These things give off a dark aura of hatred and are clearly fairy phantom things, but they resemble fairies much more than they do ghosts. Ghasts have already been sorted, so we can skip them and move on to the Guardians, a mob with a blatant Psybeam attack. Another very unique attack type and one that takes a lot to deal with, especially when you're dealing with 3 at once, which you typically are. As the Guardian of the Elder Guardian, an aquatic semi-boss, it has to be Water Psychic. Unlike its smaller brethren, Hoglins go right for the kill, with no room for negotiation, and since they don't care whatsoever about your armor type, we can take the Steel type away and make them just a fighting type. As it is a pretty stock standard mammal, the normal type could be an option, but that would also count for the Piglins, and that would just create a mess. Wow, these hostile mobs have been pretty easy to place, but I guess that's why they're so iconic. You get what they are just by looking at them and by knowing their name. Magma Cube. Yeah, that's a fire rock if I've ever seen one. Nothing else could actually be argued for with this in my opinion. And if you're telling me a burning hot rock isn't this typing, you're crazy. We've got our final category of mob that deserves a general typing and a small go-over of each of its variants, and that is the Skeleton, with its variants being the Bogged, Parched, and Stray. Skeleton W, by the way, as it clearly has much more exciting variants than the Zombie. Bogged are gross little water skeletons that are covered in algae and all sorts of awful stuff. This one is very frustrating, as it can link to 4 types, those being the Ghost, Rock, Water, and Grass types. I honestly want to give it all of them, but we need to narrow it down, or Game Freak will remove my spine. The way we can do this is by referencing another Pokemon, Delmise, who is an anchor covered in seaweed, which would also warrant 4 types, but with that Pokemon, they bin off the Water and Steel type, even though they are pretty much the basis for what you'd expect an anchor Pokemon to be, meaning that translates into Rock Grass for our Drenched Skeleton. Don't hate the player, hate the Game Freak, man. The Parched is easy to figure out, as desert equals ground at this point, and for me, a skeleton's main typing is rock, so it's rock ground, with the regular skeleton being rock ghost as a baseline. Finally, the Stray can keep this trend up while being native to notably snowier biomes, meaning it's a rock ice type. Everyone hates Phantoms, the winged beast of the night, who sounded like an awesome concept and turned out to be the worst addition to this game. Maybe this was a sign from the start that the mob vote wasn't a great idea. We don't have to spend any longer on this thing though, as Flying Dark is more than a perfect fit. It's the final Piglin, the Piglin Brute. A pretty rare thing to find, as they are exclusive to bastions hidden deep within the murky depths of hell. This guy knows how to fight, like really well. You want to gimmick this guy to kill him, as not even a Prime Dream would be able to 1v1 and defeat such a challenger. Because bastions are so entrenched in lava, I think the fire type is actually a valid typing, finally, for one of these pigs. Half the difficulty in killing one is the ruined floor covered in lava, so it's pretty much a feature of the mob at this point. What if, instead of Wily Wills, I was Naive Nigel? Opposite selves are a pretty used up plot point within all of media, but pillagers do pull it off really well, as our darker, more evil variant of the villager. They pillage, of course, and are happy to murder a villager or two, so I think the dark typing is fitting. Their pets, the Ravagers, can claim this type as well, but these are very heavily armored monsters, meaning the Steel type is also appropriate. As Vindicators and Pillagers are very similar with their vibes, only really changing their spawn location and weapon choice, they can have the Dark type as well. Shulkers can also get the Steel type, as their shells are one of the only impenetrable things in this game. Seriously, it's like just bedrock and these when they're closed. With their ability to then also launch gravity-flying projectiles that magically make you levitate, of course they have to have the Psychic type. Another easy one, and I'm on a roll. Go next, go next! The Slime, a classic enemy in all RPG games that don't really have an origin nor much of a link to any type. I guess it's watery in nature, but so is everything. If I went by that logic, humans would be a water-type Pokemon, and that's giving even more ammo to the Vaporeon people. Ugh. The slime can just be typed on its roots in fairy tale-like games, and thus will suit just the fairy type. I've mentioned witches a lot throughout the video, so it only needs a quick mention as something that you'd expect to be a psychic type, but just ends up being a normal poison type. Yeah, it's not that impressive to throw some random bottles of juice on someone. Anyone can do that, and with the right chemicals, I'm sure you could poison them in the process. A witch is just a villager who knows how to use a brewing stand for evil. It really feels like I'm just cleaning up variations as I get close to the bottom, as the Zoglin is just the zombie piglin equivalent of a Hoglin, meaning we can once again just add the ghost type to what it already had, before it went and got itself all undead. And finally, the Wither Skeleton, which I have to discuss before the Wither, as I wanted to leave all the bosses till last. So, what is the Wither effect? It's kind of like a poison, I guess? It's very similar, and if I saw someone in real life withering away like this, I'd just assume that they've been poisoned in a sense, by any ailment. With the charred bones and general evil that emanates from these things, the dark type is a good fit as well. I'm sorry, Rock and Fighting, you weren't enough. Very, very quickly, before we go over the big bosses themselves, let's run through the mob mashups that will interact with typings interestingly. Chicken Jockey, a combo that puts together two mobs that practically only had one type each anyway. The Hoglin Jockey, basically a Hoglin with some useless children on its back, and thus not warranting any more types. The Ravager Jockey, kinda the same thing as the Hoglin Jockey, as the rider has the same typings. Skeleton Horsemen. I'm feeling like a broken record. These two mobs already shared basically the same typing, so we're good again with Rock Ghost. Spider Jockey, finally, a marriage between two different species. Bug is the most defining trait of the spider, and Rock is the skeleton's trademark. Thus, they go together here. Strider Jockey. This could have been easy if we had a regular piglin, but too much is going on for this to be simple. But the Strider has to be a fire type, so at least we've got that down. I guess we should then just go with the Ghost type, since it's got a cadaver on its back. Zombie Horseman. Ghost, what more do you need? Zombie Nautilus Jockey. Like its name, it's another mob duo that really has way too much going on. I think the Drown now overpowers my argument for discluding water from the original Zombie Nautilus's typing, so it'll be Ghost Water. And finally, the Camel Husk Jockey, which is the same sitch as the Hoglin and Ravager. Nothing needs to change for its typing to work, as both mobs are the same types. Now for the main event, our big bad bosses. I know two of these aren't technically bosses as they don't have boss fight bars, but they are placed in the game in such a way that they might as well be. Let's go with the Warden first. This dude's whole gimmick is living within the deep dark, and then also making your screen dark. It's horrifying, and if you want to see my genuine initial reaction to it, go and watch my video where I try to kill every single mob within 24 hours. It's a really good video, guys. The mob, though, itself is not very fun to encounter at all. Most mobs lose the fear factor once you start to play around them, and that is not true for this guy, as death is inevitable, thanks to its giant sonic beam. Sound-based attacks are typically of the normal variety, but this whole thing's design feels much more like a psychic type, especially with its psychic link to Skulk sensors. Dark Psychic is a great fit for such a scary and powerful mob. Then we have a big fish in a small temple, who is very similar to our smaller guardians, but has a considerable health pool and lives within the temple. Since these things genuinely won't naturally see anything to do with land or even the sky, they have to be water types. Now we have a difficult decision. Yes, it has the psychic beam thing that regular guardians have, but with its imposing size, different design, and temple home, these things genuinely feel like pseudo-legendaries, and this psychic beam could easily be mistaken for a dragon-type move. So as this mob is so special, I think it deserves the dragon type with water on top. The Wither, our last optional boss. We've already been over the Wither effect a little bit, considering it more of a poison type move than anything, but this Unholy Abomination's design is very comparable to Yveltal, the Destruction Pokemon. Something that it does in a very similar manner to the Wither. I think flying is 100% on the cards here, so we need to figure out between dark and poison. And I will indeed go with poison, as the Wither effect is so important to this guy that it's got the exact same name. It's also so frustrating to deal with and really the only difficulty with fighting the Wither. The rest of the utter rubbish it has in its arsenal are just the cherry on top of a quite frankly terrible boss fight, if you do it solo. The Void and the King of the Void. These are inseparable. The Ender Dragon lives for the end, and that endless darkness is key to its identity. so of course it's got to be a dark type. Which means the final type for this entire video is actually going to be underwhelming. Sorry about that, guys, but I can't really build up any mystery or hype for giving the only dragon in this game the dragon type. Don't forget to subscribe to Wily Wheels and join the giveaway when I reach 10,000 subscribers. The video on screen in front of your very eyes is what YouTube recommends you watch next, or you can head straight to my channel and have a rummage around for more Wily Wheels goodness. See you in the next video.